probably won't get this reference, but anybody who's watching, uh, in the world of anime, there's a series that is really, um, uh, for whatever reason, I don't know why it's very popular. It's called Solo Leveling, right? That's the name of the anime.
Okay.
And to me, I saw a couple episodes of that, and it was so boring in the sense that this guy is just so overpowered, right? He just gets stronger and then stronger and then stronger and then stronger. He never struggles,
Mhm.
and he just keeps beating these bad guys, and it's like what's going on? Like I don't see the point. Like cool, the action sequences are spectacular,
Mhm.
but there's nothing on the flip side. You watch the development of a character like Iron Man, right? And although Iron Man is not anime, but like just the idea that this guy will use what he can, but then he's hitting so many limits,
Mhm.
right? To his ability, he has to solve problems, be able to get over those. By the time it comes to Infinity War, like he's this very powerful character, but even then there are limits.
Mhm.
And sticking to the anime idea, like even characters that are super powerful, like Naruto, like this guy will use an ability that is super ridiculous, but it still has a negative impact on him.
Mhm.
So even the super amazing ability that can almost defeat anyone will cause an adverse effect on him, and therefore he'll be out of commission for a little while. So there's a consequence to be like, so you kind of are engaged more with the character because of vulnerabilities, right? And so the the point that I'm sharing is that that's what people connect with.
Okay.
It's not necessarily you and I am gonna become a celebrity because I shared my story, or we're turning somebody into a celebrity because we're having them share their story. Like that's not real,
Hmm.
right? That's not how celebrity development works. If we were to call it, if
That.
that were a thing, right? Like there's so many different levels of exposure and value and admiration and influence and trend setting and sponsorship that goes into bringing an individual up to a particular level that has them then transcend the very thing that they're engaged in,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
The closest thing I can even think about in a positive sense
Hmm.
within our own scholarly tradition
Mhm.
would be people like the uh, the founders of the four schools of thought, right? And like these guys reached, even in their own lifetime, a status of celebrity, right? In the sense of like, to the degree where even the governments wanted them on their side, but when they resisted, like, no, we're gonna beat you,
Hmm.
right? Because of the influence and the trend-setting power that they carried. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Right? But like, the question is, this comes down to the integrity of the individual.
Mhm.
Are they going to sell out?
Hmm. Okay.
And that is what history shows as to the ones who are maybe sincere versus who are not.
So maybe that's the fear then.
If somebody's insecure about their own sincerity,
Yeah.
that they feel like, oh, if
Maybe
I
it's
become,
safer to stay irrelevant.
maybe, but here's the thing, the thing that even Sheikh Muhammad would teach us is that money, fame, and power only magnify what is already in us.
Mhm.
They just reveal our true selves. And so that's why it's really important for the individual to work on
Mhm.
themselves. Uh, because why was Abu Bakr Siddiq advised to pray the night prayer?
Mhm.
Because it was it was understood that he's going to be facing a lot of stuff in a very authoritative position.
Mhm.
Had he not kept himself spiritually grounded, then he wouldn't be able to deal with, likely,
Mhm.
the things that he had to face. And I think that is a lesson to all of us, where if we're not emotionally, spiritually grounded
Mhm.
for the work, then the work itself is going to sabotage. In this video, let's talk about the idea of studying Quran and Tajweed,
Mhm.
not necessarily as a teacher, but from the perspective of when it comes to somebody wanting to study and you wanting them to learn,
Mhm.
right? Granted, now you are somebody whose content is in the Quran flow system,
Mhm.
right? But regardless of whether it's you or anybody else, What is the utility, the tangible utility of learning how to recite Quran?
So it's 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 an ability to engage with the text at a pretty basic level, which is just reading, right? And the effect of that. You see, like, I can't speak for everyone.
Sure.
I can't speak for everyone, right? Maybe for someone, uh, they might feel like, wait, I don't see the utility, but when I read it in English or a language I understand, like, I feel like I get more out of that. So I can't really speak to that, but I can speak. Should I speak for myself or what I think someone like? What's your question again?
I mean, my question is, um, if because if somebody's going to ask you,
Hmm.
why should I study Tajweed, right? And even from a perspective of, I would take that even further. It's like, not why should I study Tajweed? What is the tangible utility of studying Tajweed? Like, what are they going to get out of it personally? Um, in the sense of their health, their wealth, their relationships, and ultimately with their relationship with Allah, right? But in a tangible sense, how can they see um, a, uh, a progress in any of these things?
So its relationship with the Quran. There's two main things that's happening. One, Tajweed is going to correct from like errors in recitation, right? So that's one angle. Pain and pleasure, right? We were talking about that in the context of marketing, right? One is you're going to avoid mistakes in recitation, right? And two, it's adding aesthetics, beauty, right? So the two of them combined, right? When you're removing errors from the recitation and you're also beautifying the recitation, it that's one way to think about it. Now, practically what that means for a person, typically there's also like what's the word? Ancillary benefits, like kind of like side benefits, right? So you're studying something, right? You might be playing a sport, for example, and the side benefits of that are, you're getting stronger or
Because I'm looking at it from the perspective of, like, a lot of times people are like, hey, I want to get six pack abs, right? And I'm like, well, and that's usually a consequence, not what you get, right? And so I'll be like, well, one, is your nutrition dialed in? Are you eating? Are you doing more than you're taking in?
Mhm.
Right. That's one. And the other thing is just um, are you engaged in any kind of athletics? Right. Whether it be from the most basic of strength training all the way to any kind of sport,
Yeah.
those two things combined will give anybody six pack abs,
Mhm.
right? Barring some specific folks in regards to genetics,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? But like in the case of like what you're saying was sounding good, right?
And avoiding
And
errors
avoiding
and mistakes.
errors, right?
Yeah. So some stuff in Tajweed is not actually like, for example, if somebody says "faman ya'mal" or somebody says "famay ya'mal," applying this rule in this particular thing, like they're not making a mistake, like they're not changing the meaning or something of that sort. So that has to do more with like beautification of the sound and reciting in a way that it was transmitted, right? So side benefits of that when you're studying that, right? You do get like a certain degree of confidence with being able to do that. You do also get greater engagement with the Quran, right? And it's like cyclical, right? Meaning as you're studying this sort of thing, you're engaging with the Quran more. As you're engaging with, you see, sometimes people think of things in silos, right? You're only learning tajweed, so what's the benefit, kind of thing. But things don't really work like that in reality. Like if somebody is learning tajweed, they're also, in some sense, they're interacting with the teacher, right? They're also engaging more with the actual mushaf, right? So it's like this. You're building up this habit of reciting. That should, I don't want to say ideally, it should like uh, lead someone to also now open up the translation because they're reading something and they're like, I'm just making these sounds. Maybe I ought to like know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to me, right? So if somebody's reading a surah over and over, then they might memorize it. They might also read the translation. They might explore the meanings. Now that sort of like in their own day-to-day life, what they've learned from the meaning, again, ideally, should have an impact on them. So it's like if somebody says, what's the benefit of saying فَمَن يَعْمَل instead of saying فَمَن يَعْمَل, right? to me, it's kind of a silly question if you're just putting that in a bucket by itself, because in some sense, like, okay, you can say one, it's better to read it this way. This is the way it was transmitted. But we're talking, like, in reality, we're dealing with the whole package, right? We're dealing with kind of somebody who can't really connect with the Quran, who like opens a mushaf and feels like they don't have this confidence, or not just confidence, they don't have this like bare minimum ability to like read through the text and feel okay about that.
Sure.
Versus somebody who learns Tajweed, and again, it's like all these side benefits. So I think that's the part where sometimes people like when you're asking the Tajweed by itself, like,
In a positive sense, is the idea of confidence. The effect of confidence manifests itself physically
mhm,
in an individual, whether it be from a sense of self-esteem, which affects the brain chemicals.
mhm,
There's a sense of cortisol reduction. There's a sense of serotonin develop, and there's a sense of dopamine that comes out of that.
mhm,
All of those things have some major positive benefits
mhm.
that will then, those benefits will spill over into other facets of life.
Yeah.
Like, would it not make sense that if somebody feels more confident in general, but even in this case, more contextually with the book of Allah subhanahu wa
Mhm.
ta'ala, would that not also cause them to connect better with the members of their family, perhaps? Right? If they are confident in reciting, let's say from a dude's perspective, right? We are the imams of our home,
Mhm.
right? And so therefore, when it comes time for prayer and we're leading our family members in salah, it would be like, and we're able to do it in a way that is correct in its recitation, wouldn't that then further inspire our children?
Yeah, yeah, so that's what I mean by like like benefits, side benefits, as opposed to if you're asking like what's the utility by itself of somebody like saying this specific sound versus that one. But these are benefits, right? Like just even like when we say confidence, it's like competence and confidence because the two kind of work together, right? Like imagine you have this mushaf on your shelf and you feel like I can't read it, so therefore I'm not gonna read it, right? It's like the inability to read it, then like it becomes, it loops on itself. It's like a negative feedback. I can't read it, therefore I'm not gonna read it. Because if I read it, like I don't know how to read it, right? So so someone in that case might actually if that leads them say to pick up a translation and engage with the Quran that way instead, that's amazing. And in fact, that's something that even a lot of people that study Tajweed might not actually read the translation. So we do have like you know, we do have some growth as a community to do in that regard. That people that are learning Tajweed do need to also engage with the Quran in a language they understand and so
Yeah.
on.
But is it fair to say, would you agree with me from what you've stated thus far, that it is appropriate to surmise that the if you learn tajweed, one of the tangible benefits of that, it will lead to a sense of self-confidence in where you will be connecting better with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your prayers. And if you're rooted and connecting better with the creator, that would lead itself to connect better with its creation, especially most immediately with your family, religious upliftment with your spouse, with your kids, and in further deeper connection with the community as well. Or at least a
I think
stepping
that's a bit
stone.
of a stretch.
At least as a stepping stone in that direction.
So okay, if you're thinking of it like if I learn Tajweed, then my relationship with the Quran is better. If my relationship with the Quran is better, then it leads me to translation and understanding what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from me. And if I put that into practice, then so there's a lot of steps there. But
There's
I don't
yeah,
think by if you're asking by itself, if somebody learns Tajweed,
yeah.
will their life magically like it's all
Well, not magically. I don't believe there's any magic involved in that. So here's some aspect that I kind of look at it like,
yeah.
right? Um, there's a sense of there's a sense of pride when I see my 5-year-old, who the first time this kid stood up in prayer,
Mm,
right? So I think we were visiting my parents in Atlanta, and I had just finished praying Dhuhr. Now we're traveling, prayed 2 rakah, done. Didn't even think anything about it. Probably not the best prayer,
yeah.
but still, my kid saw me, and he gets into position. And at this point, he's like maybe a year old,
Mm.
or a year and a half, or something like that. And he starts going through the motions of prayer just by himself. And both my wife and I, like, it's just like that gleeful, like, our kid is praying, right? And now, with, at home, one of the things that we try to do is when it comes time for salah, I'm like, hey, Yusuf, come on, get over, let's pray, Allahu Akbar, and we start praying. Now he's gotten to the point where now I think part of it is the influence of the summer camp. And one of the key things that I had hoped for and I'm getting out of my 5-year-old being in a summer camp at an Islamic school is they have heavily emphasized teaching the kid how to pray, right? In terms of the pronunciation of Al-Fatiha and all of the various things that you say in the salah. And and then one day after my kid goes, Baba, I'm leading. I'm like, okay, go ahead, lead. It's also salah, but he decides to go loud. It's like, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And I'm like, yo, this is awesome, right? My kid's like I've tried to teach him, but there's only so much a parent can do as opposed to like outside influence.
Yeah, so all of this is what I would call like side benefits. But I don't know, maybe you want to call it benefits. But I mean to say like
But
it's
there's a
not
confidence, right?
so,
Had
so
my kid
yeah.
not had the skill in being able to recite the very basic verses, he would not then be ready to be like, I'm leading, right? Now, before he knew it, his cousin knew it, right? His cousin, and even then I was just like, go ahead, now your turn. He's like, no, I'm not ready. I don't know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But then now that he knows, he's like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm doing it,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like that same kind of thing would like, because it also manifests in like in reading circles, right? Study circles, halaqat at the mosques and stuff. And I remember even when I was younger, it was just like people who didn't know how to recite, they would do anything and everything to like not show up for the recitation portion. Or like they know the recitation is going on, so they'll just wait outside, right? Until like, okay, oh, they already recited, okay, then let's just join the crew and hang out and discuss.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the point? Like that's the major thing of being able to recite the words of Allah, but because you're so ashamed of not being able to recite, so therefore you don't want to be called out and maybe feel like nobody in the group is gonna be like, ha ha, you suck.
Yeah.
Right? But they for whatever reason feel that way. Right? But yet if they had the skill, that feeling wouldn't even be there.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that's what I mean by competence, confidence, right? It's like you have a minimum, like this minimum level of ability to do something, so you feel confident enough to do the thing, right? I mean, I'm Canadian, so it's like think of skating. If someone, alhamdulillah, I can skate and I play hockey. If someone can't really skate very well, every time they put on a skate and they make the effort to get onto the ice and they start falling, they might get hurt. It's embarrassing, kind of, it's a little.
Yeah, I mean, my
embarrassing.
first time skating, I remember like we're East Coast guys, but like I don't play hockey.
Yeah.
I see people, and if it gets cold outside, so there's a ice hockey thing open. I get these ill-fitting, not hockey, but just ice skating, right? So I get these ill-fitting shoes, and the whole time I'm just right, and just like,
Well, it's a good thing they didn't have YouTube back then.
oh,
Well, there probably was, but no one had an iPhone to Instagram.
it was recorded.
Oh, it was recorded.
It was recorded. I don't know what happened to it, but it was recorded, right? And so, and it was shared around with close family and friends at the time, and they all had a good laugh. And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead, guys, enjoy." And soon that video will.
So did you go back skating after that?
I did.
Okay.
Right? For me, it was just a matter of like getting my bearings.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, it was just like, all right, this is similar. But what I had to do, what kind of got me to it, was I was like, what? I need shoes that fit better. Right. That was the biggest problem.
Skates.
Yeah, the skates. Yeah. And then the second thing was, because like I skied.
Yeah.
Right. And I
Okay,
roller
so similar
skated.
mechanics are similar.
Yeah, I just need to kind of map those mechanics. It's not exactly the same,
Yeah.
but I still need to map those kind of mechanics until I got the hang of it, right? It didn't take me long. I think it took me another 2 sessions, 2 tries until I was like, okay, I got this, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not figure skating, but like, I can stand and I can skate and still have a good time.
So for some people, if they went that once and they felt embarrassed by, like they felt that they made a fool of themselves, then they might not ever, like they might just pack the skates wherever and not go skating again.
Sure.
Because
they're so traumatized.
Yeah, or it might not just, it just might not be worth the effort. Like if I want to do something fun,
Yeah.
but now I'm gonna go take
that's
my
the
skates
thing,
out, and
not
I'm gonna take time, and I'm gonna go on the ice, and then I'm gonna fall down, I'll get hurt, and I might, embarrass myself. Then I might not want to do it again. what does that do? That just reinforces the same thing. I'm not going to get any better by doing that, right? So I think it's a similar thing sometimes with people with the Quran, that like, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. So might as well not go through the, you know, like, why bother doing this activity that I can't really do and it's hard for me?
Right.
And
Because it
even
requires
even if I'm not worried about embarrassing myself in front of others, but if I'm not finding that peace or whatever I'm trying to get out of that activity, then maybe it just becomes something that I'll do something instead. Maybe I'll listen to a lecture on YouTube instead. Maybe, you know, maybe I'll read a book instead. Like, uh,
But they end
so
up
so that
resorting to being a spectator than a player.
well, and so that's the thing. So when we ask about the utility of this, of learning tajweed, it's getting that like almost basic competence, and you feel like, okay, I can open my mushaf and recite it. And the hope is that that leads to other things, because tajweed by itself is not like, it's not what the Quran is for, to just pronounce it properly,
But
right?
isn't it not? Is it not the right of the Quran?
In a general sense, but not necessarily every single thing that would fall under tajweed.
Okay, can you elaborate?
Like, as I said, some things when you're reading, for example, might change the meaning, right? So if you want to say like the right of the Quran that you don't change its meaning,
Right.
like, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But
So I'm looking at it maybe even more simply,
mhm.
right? like granted, like there's a aspect where if you recite it incorrectly, that even goes sometimes beyond tajweed, right? But like somebody, is it is it acceptable for somebody to be satisfied with being able to recite uh, the basic surah like Alhamdu Lillahi Rabbil Alameen, right? And be like, I got this, I'm done. Versus like, no, this is great. The fact that you can now read these words and now, but don't stop there. In fact, I would even go as far as saying for you to stop there and say that you're satisfied and you're not going to make any further progress, like that's like wrong. You know what I'm saying? I was like, you need to keep improving.
Okay, in general, yes, people ought to keep improving.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I would call out any specific individual based on that, because if someone was reading like that, maybe they're a recent convert,
No,
right? Right? So
that's the thing. Like, if like I wouldn't call them out, call out a stranger, but
yeah,
like
yeah.
if I know somebody and they're coming at me, with the sense of like, hey, like I did this, I'm like, yo, this is amazing. The fact that you went from zero to this, however long it took, like props, right? And may you be rewarded for every struggle that you had.
Mhm.
But then be like, all right, I got this. I'm done. I don't need to practice no more, right? Like this is where I'm at. I'm like, wait, hold on, no.
Yeah, but I don't think people would generally come at it like, I don't need to practice anymore. Uh,
No, I mean, I've had
yeah,
people
to go back to the
yeah,
earlier thing that I was saying, just to revisit that, the idea, like, if someone has this baseline competence, then it leads them to being able to access, like, it facilitates them accessing the Quran more, right? And ideally, but it's not always the case. So that's why I say ideally, because a lot of people might just read it in Arabic alone. They don't understand, a word of what they're saying. And then they might resort to like other avenues of listening to lectures, for example, to understand, this and so on. But so ideally, it should lead to these other benefits, that a person is engaging with the text more, right? Leads them to sometimes trying to memorize more, read the translation, understand the message, like internally, like emotionally and intellectually and spiritually engage with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying
right.
or telling us.
But like,
And then it should have an effect. So it should have a direct effect on a person's mindset and behavior.
sure,
And
but
then also these side benefits, which are these kind of things like you mentioned, like, okay, now because I happen to be somebody who's learning recitation and engaging with recitation, my kids are also picking it up, right? So that now has a generational impact. The home is a place where the normal thing to do is that Quran is being recited, right? So it almost like, so these are all benefits that come from tajweed, but it's not like a benefit specifically from saying yeah ayyuha versus yeah
yeah, but
ayyuha and stretching it
I'm
like
not
that.
I'm not talking about the specifics of individual tajweed rules.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm talking about the general idea of learning how to recite Quran properly,
yeah,
right? Like that is a benefit and an effect and a consequence
yeah.
of doing that. right? Like I remember when I was reciting to my teacher back when I was in college, we had this we would have something because I was appointed had the appointment with him
Hmm.
at specific 2 days a week at a specific time, and then because I was there, other people were like, oh, can I join in? Sure, join in. And there was this Egyptian gentleman, and he was reciting, but he was literally pronouncing every jim like a ga
Okay.
in the Quran,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And it seemed like that's how, like, he assumed he knows how to read Arabic, but he's reading it Egyptian. And so, my teacher is just like, no, 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 it's a G. It's like, yeah, ga. It's like, no,
Yeah.
not ga. It's ja, right? And so, and he kept correcting him. And that's when he was just like, I don't want to say he was frustrated,
Yeah.
but he was like, hold on, dude. Like, this is the Quran,
Yeah.
right? Like, you gotta, you're not reading a newspaper.
Yes, yes.
And so, like, and that's it. Like, that's what I mean by like, for, now I think the guy got it.
Mm.
He's like, yeah, this is the Quran. There's a sense of reverence. I should be reading it the way it should be recited,
Yeah.
right? And so, in the sense that the
People ought to aspire to recite it in the way that it was transmitted.
right,
And yeah.
right, right.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it kind of feels weird to say this, but like even like Christopher Nolan, right? He's a filmmaker,
Yeah.
but he'll
Batman.
yeah, he's done Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and all, and Tenet and whatever. But he exclusively produces movies for the large screen experience,
Okay.
right? IMAX, right? His next movie, he's producing exclusively in IMAX.
Mm.
When asked, hey, would you ever produce something for Netflix? He's like, absolutely not.
Mm.
Not that he has anything against Netflix, but he's like, I'm not going to produce anything for Netflix because I want to produce for the large theater experience. And I would hope that you, as the viewer, would view my thing on the big screen,
Mm.
right? Or on a bigger screen. And I remember my wife, the first time she saw Interstellar was on an airplane.
Mm.
And she's like, I don't get what the big deal is. It's a dust storm. We get these in Saudi all the time,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, she was born and raised there. And so, but then it wasn't until much later where at her sister and brother-in-law's place, they had like this projection screen in their basement, and we watched Interstellar on the big screen with a good sound system. And she's like, "Oh my God, this is a totally different experience,
Mm.
right?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is how it's meant to be seen."
Yeah.
And in the same analogy, I'm like, the Quran, like it's supposed to be recited a particular way,
Yes, yes.
right? And all of its spiritual benefits and ancillary benefits and tangible results that come from that come from learning Tajweed. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
I hear a sense of like
So
maybe.
so because they're like, again, if you're like going for like the whole package,
Yeah.
to me it's like the whole package leads to these like all these kind of like collective benefits. But if we're talking in and of itself, if somebody, for example, like if somebody says, yeah, ayuha, with a short med, or elongates it, yeah, ayuha, is that in and of itself producing some sort of spiritual benefit? Or I don't know if that's what you're trying to say. Like
Well, I mean,
you are overall
in,
reciting the
in,
Quran.
I would argue even in that sense, if you're intentional about giving that letter its right, are you not being uh, 10x rewarded with for the sincerity of that? And if you're struggling, double.
Yeah, but that's more to do with fluency. Like somebody struggling to recite.
Right,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the whole point of like with Quran flow and the various levels that we have in place is to help them go from nothing to reading to reciting to flow and
And then
fluency.
applying these.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so like because I'm trying to maybe help articulate. I don't know if I'm making the case for it, but I'm also from you as an
Yeah, yeah. So
instructor.
so I see it as like a package type of thing,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
More than I think what you were asking initially, like how does it benefit your health, for example? Like
Well,
to me, that's a strange
well,
question.
so
Like the
maybe
point, yeah,
maybe I'm starting too specific,
yeah, yeah.
but like I would want to be able to articulate that learning to recite the Book of Allah as it's intended to be recited will have tangible benefits in your health, in your relationships, in your career, in your community, in your relationship with Allah. And I think
But that has to me, that has more to do with the relationship with the Quran as a whole.
right,
this being a part of that, right? So if somebody said, so like again, if we're trying to like put things in buckets, if I learn to pronounce things a certain
But
way,
doesn't your relationship with the Quran begin with reciting it?
yeah, it could. That's why I'm saying it's part of it, because somebody else, suppose someone like their engagement with the Quran, suppose someone says, I don't know how to recite the Quran,
Sure,
but like this Ramadan, whatever, I'm gonna read it cover to cover
sure.
in English.
Okay.
Right?
But that's a starting point.
Yeah, yeah.
But you wouldn't want them to leave it at that.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But my point is that like it's all together. So the idea of like tajweed by itself,
Yeah.
like yes, the Quran ought to be recited a certain way and has been transmitted a certain way,
Sure.
right?
I mean, its
But
preservation is
but
based in that.
yeah, but the benefit is collective from not just tajweed in a silo by itself, but in as much as tajweed is a gateway into your engagement with the Quran.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm coming from.
So tajweed is the highway to a better life.
I mean, your words, not mine. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
would you agree with that or no?
It's not the only highway.
Okay.
It's not the only highway.
Okay.
That the Quran is a
Yeah.
highway to a better life.
Sure.
So the Quran is a highway to a better life.
So tajweed
Tajweed is
is tajweed the on ramp to the Quran, or probably the most effective, most appropriate on ramp that one could use.
So I don't know if I'm doing a bad job of selling the program.
I'm not.
So
I'm not
here's the
asking
idea.
you to sell
So
the program. I'm trying to get you to
Yeah,
articulate from your perspective.
So the way I'm thinking,
the benefit of
Quran
tajweed
is the highway to
Yeah.
a better life.
Sure.
Okay, in this life and the next.
Yes.
Now, how somebody relates with the Quran, uh, like there's different ways of engaging with the Quran. The most basic way of engaging with the Quran, right, is being able to read it and understand it, right? So at the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Quran is being revealed and being recited, and everyone understands the Quran, right? It's just that's the language, right? So the two are kind of intertwined.
I mean,
right?
they are, yeah.
Yeah. Now, because we have it as like two separate things, people learn tajweed and then people like learn the meanings or listen to lectures or whatever. So that's why it's hard to answer that question, because they have been like in our community sort of separated.
But if somebody were to pursue at least the fundamental facets of tajweed, it would at least require some level of understanding, right? Even within the Quran Flow program, right? Yes, on the fundamental basics, like, I mean, I want to say fundamentals is like, it's even pre-fundamentals, because like learning the letters and how to pronounce them and how to put them together to read and recite and like have a little bit of flow, that's like the basics of basics, right? And then, but when you go beyond that, like if you want to go into more advanced tajweed stuff, yes, there is the level of understanding that you need to have in order to be able to memorize and retain it. There is a level of understanding that's advisable, and for you to have a sense of emotional expression with the Quran, whether it's through maqamat or just your own organic sense of being in tune with it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of that will come through having a sense of understanding.
Yeah. So that's why I would say very clearly the Quran is your highway to a better life in this life and the next. So tajweed then like is part of that, right? Because tajweed is like, again, competence and confidence, right? When you can feel like, hey, you know what, I can actually open this mushaf and read it, and then from there, like see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to say to me. And you know, like when you can have these experiences, right? That like you're reciting the Quran and it's impacting you, that you're reciting, you come home after a day of, you know, work, or you're having some trouble in life, whatever, and you open somewhere and you're able to recite. And even if you don't understand much, but like you start to see the attributes of Allah, Wallahu Ghafurur Rahim, right? Allah is the most forgiving, the most merciful, right? Any like even these little phrases that you might, even if you don't understand everything, but you start to have this like engagement with the material, then the Quran starts to speak to you in a way that you otherwise wouldn't have had access to. I would say the main benefit is the confidence and competence, right? The confidence that I'm reading Quran correctly the way it was transmitted, right? So there's this confidence and competence, and it snowballs and gives you access, like allows you to feel like I can access the rest of what the Quran has to offer. But the Quran is the Quran, right? And tajweed is a part of that. So when we think of the benefit of tajweed, it's the benefit of access to the Quran, and then we have these side benefits, right? That, you know, like you sort of set standards in your house, for example, that your kids will also probably read at a certain way, like at least at your level, right? For example, it also, you become somebody identity-wise who is a student of Tajweed and recites Quran, and from there things lead to other things, right? If you are, again, I say ideally, because some people will do Tajweed but not like engage with the Quran otherwise, or they may read the Quran over and over and over and never actually read a translation or something. So to me, it's like the benefit is, you see, there's the two things. It comes back to the Tajweed is correcting for errors in recitation, and then there's a whole host of things which are more beautification, right? This is a line in from Imam Ibn al-Jazari, who, when he describes the why we ought to read with Tajweed, he says, لِأَنَّهُ بِهِ الْإِلَهِ أَنزَلَتْ, because that's the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran. وَهَكَذَا مِنْهُ إِلَيْنَا وَصَلَ, and that's how it reached us. So that's the one reason he gives, like with 2 points. وَهِيَ أَيْضًا حِلْيَةُ التِّلَاوَةِ, and it is also the sweetness of recitation. وَزِينَةُ الْأَدَاءِ وَالْقِرَاءَ, and also, so he kind of so these 2 points that I mentioned, he mentioned
this is all from his poem.
From his poem, right?
That
So
that encapsulates the rules of Tajweed.
yes, yeah.
Okay, but that's like awesome.
Yeah, so it's also وَهِيَ أَيْضًا حِلْيَةُ التِّلَاوَةِ وَزِينَةُ الْأَدَاءِ وَالْقِرَاءَ. So it's also the sweetness of recitation, and the beautification of performance and recitation. So it kind of is both of those components, right? You're solving for making any errors, especially errors that change the meaning, right? But a lot of Tajweed is not related to that. A lot of Tajweed is perfecting your pronunciation or making things clear, for example, or not being, say, I don't know if sloppy is the right word, but being more crisp with your recitation overall, right? So now practically the benefits from that, again, remember what I said about kind of the separation of Tajweed and recitation from engaging with the meaning. So ideally, the Quran is the Quran, right? It's not the Quran is not separate things, right? The Quran is the whole thing. You're reciting it to engage with the meaning and benefit from the guidance and implement that in your guidance. And that's where you're asking about benefit for your your relationships or whatever. It doesn't come from you pronouncing something a certain way. It comes from you engaging with the Quran and making the Quran, and thereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a central part of your being, right? So you don't want to just be somebody who pronounce
Is it fair to say that you can't make the Quran a central part of your being except that you incorporate Tajweed as part of it?
I would slightly disagree with that.
So if you say, I'm not going to even worry about Tajweed, the Quran's it.
No, so you're talking about somebody who is consciously saying, I don't got time for that, versus somebody, because that's not the initial question.
The thing is, a lot of people do say things like that.
Suppose someone, suppose someone, for whatever reason, they became Muslim recently, they came back to the religion recently, meaning they're born Muslim, but maybe they're not practicing, or they're, so if somebody in that situation was let me turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they pick up, translation.
I wouldn't think they are consciously be I'm not going to learn Tajweed.
Yeah. So,
right? So what I'm thinking is,
so that would go back. Your first question was, can someone have a relationship with the Quran without learning Tajweed? I think that was the question.
Well,
so I think
without incorporating Tajweed as a part of that. So because some people look, I don't got no time for Tajweed. I want to connect with the Quran, and so I'm gonna let this part go, and because observations, right? This may or may not be majority people. Observation is I don't got time for Tajweed. Tajweed is too hard. I'm just gonna go ahead and memorize it.
Okay, something like that.
Or I don't care about these rules. I just want to sound good. Right?
Okay, so you're coming here, you're asking that. Okay, I haven't really encountered such folks. Maybe that's the problem. I'm having kind of trouble understanding what you're asking.
Because what it is that, because
I thought you're asking maybe, okay, this is how I understood the question.
Yeah.
If there's someone who for whatever reason didn't learn Tajweed, but they every day they open a translation and they read, and they study the translation, and they're like, and they improve their life based on that. So I was kind of thinking, can such a person have a meaningful relationship with the Quran without learning Tajweed?
No, that's
I
not what
would
I'm.
say, yeah, I would
That's
say
not the
you.
person I'm
Okay,
asking
okay,
about.
that's not what you're
Yeah,
asking.
I'm asking
But I
about.
would say yes to that person, right? Like that person might have
Yeah,
even,
because they're not. That same person wouldn't be like, I don't need to learn Tajweed. I don't want to learn Tajweed, right? That person be like, it would be great to know Tajweed,
hmm
right? I'm just not there yet,
yeah, yeah,
right? Versus, um, because I feel like the examples and observations that I've perhaps seen
hmm
are rooted in the assumption that I'm making about what that statement is rooted in
yeah,
is the fact that learning Tajweed, if you don't know it, it's kind of hard. And we've noticed this in Jiu-Jitsu,
hmm
right? In Jiu-Jitsu, it takes at least a couple years for you to get the fundamentals down. By a
yeah,
couple years, I'm talking about at least 200 hours on the mat,
hmm
right? Over the course of 2 years, where you finally got the positions, right? How to transition from one position to the next,
yeah,
and to finally enjoy the process of choking each other out,
yeah,
right? And so most people will look at that and then be like, how long does it take me to get my black belt?
hmm
Take me about a decade,
yeah,
minimum 3,400 hours
hmm
on the mat,
hmm
right? Over the course of 10 years, I don't got no time for that. I just want to learn how to defend myself. Great,
yeah,
right? Give it 2 years. 2 years, I need to defend myself yesterday, right? And so they're like, give me a gun.
mm,
And so, like, okay, fine. But then even with a firearm, you got to spend time training. You got to learn about situational awareness, stress testing, knowing how to like. It's not like this might be discouraging to some, but like learning the fundamentals of almost any craft or skill. There's a learning curve.
hmm
It's not easy.
yeah,
And sometimes you just gotta go through those trenches.
hmm
And the people that again, the observation with like, hey, I don't want to bother with the Tajweed. Let me just memorize it. Let me just get some kicks to techniques to sound good. People were just starting out. Hell, give me the submission so I can win.
hmm
And or they'll go for a submission, but they've just got such a poor foundation that they'll just get swept
yeah,
and they get choked out.
hmm
And so now nobody's gonna choke you out in the process of reciting Quran wrong,
yeah.
hopefully. But what was that? It depends on which madrasa that you go to. Very true. Somebody might choke you out or beat you up. Um, but we're not talking about those people. But my my thought and the thing that I want to be like, because I would hope that that what we're doing here could also inspire this very individual that is seeking confidence, like you
hmm
talked about, right? Seeking confidence and connecting with the Book of Allah. But like, hey, yes, tajweed is a part of that,
hmm
right? And if you decide to ignore that completely, there's a whole portion of that you're just leaving out.
Yeah, because of because of the access benefits, if you want to put it that way, right? So if someone is not like,
Because it's the analogy of, do you want to stay a spectator your entire life,
mhm,
or do you want to play the game?
yeah,
I don't want to call it Quran a game, but like,
yeah, you do
yeah,
want access to it, right? If you don't have that access and you don't feel like you can access it,
yeah,
right? And then you don't recite because you don't feel comfortable or you don't feel confident or you don't feel competent, right? Then like that also becomes a distance between you and the Mus'haf as well, right? So I think I think that's how it makes sense in my head. I don't know. Maybe you're
no,
coming at, yeah,
I mean, perhaps access is the appropriate term,
yeah,
right? Because like, ain't nobody gonna let you play on the court. I'm talking basketball terms here, right? Like street basketball, except that you know how to play.
yeah,
If you suck, they'll be like, yo, get out,
yeah,
right? Like you're not helping the team.
yeah,
And so, and you're gonna embarrass yourself, embarrass your friends, and they're not gonna invite you out to play again.
yeah. Of course, certainly, if someone, for example, didn't know Tajweed, right, and they just like they still struggle through with reading, and they still like, so it's hard to give a one size fits all answer because you could have someone who comes to the Quran without much knowledge of, like you gave an example of somebody pronouncing a certain way. Somebody could still get through, I'll give you an example. My grandma, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have mercy on her. So I remember when we were like in high school, university, like sometimes we would just we were talking about 24 the other day.
Yeah,
Sometimes we'd
series, yeah.
be binge watching 24 like basically all night, and
Yeah.
then Fajr time.
For Gen Z folks, the thing about 24, this is in the early 2000s. This show was groundbreaking because each episode played back in real time. So if it was a 1 hour episode, it would all the events in the show would take place in the period of
In
real
1 hour, yeah.
in real time 1 hour, and it was 24 episodes per season, so therefore it was a 24 hours, and you could binge watch 24 straight hours. Probably a little bit less if you cut through commercials, but yeah, FYI if you don't know. We'll continue.
So like we'd be like whatever watching, after Isha, whatever, we get the popcorn out, whatever, we're watching basically till Fajr. My grandma wakes up and she's praying to Hajj. She's reading Quran, uh, with no tajweed, but she's reading, right? And then when it's time for Fajr, she's the one that comes and tells us to like
Well,
pause, let's pray
is it
together.
fair to say with no tajweed or to the level of tajweed that she got to?
Yeah, probably the latter. But it hasn't formally studied
Okay.
Tajweed.
But
But okay,
when
by the way,
yeah,
when we say Tajweed, I think it's also helpful. Maybe you can clarify for viewers what you intend by Tajweed. Because if we're talking about the context of Quran flow, right?
yeah.
When I'm thinking Tajweed, I'm thinking level 4. But if you're thinking the whole thing
I am
altogether,
thinking, yeah, when I say
so,
tajweed,
okay, so that's also
I'm saying it in the context of the entire Quran flow.
okay. So then I think we're talking about different things, and maybe we need to redo this.
And I wanted
Yeah.
to get to this
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because and maybe this is the the appropriate segue into that, because you specifically teach advanced reading techniques within the fundamentals program, the last level, which is level 4, and you teach the last level in the advanced program, which is all about tone
Yeah.
and which goes into beautifying that voice, which are both like the things that people want,
Yes, yes.
right? And
Okay,
but
so maybe you've been talking about we've been talking about different things, but if you mean by when you say tajweed all along, you've been asking this question, you're talking about what we would call in this program level 1, 2, and 3.
yeah, well,
I might have
all encompassing.
yeah, all encompassing.
Yeah,
So I've been thinking about it as level 4 alone.
yeah,
So maybe that colored my answers. Because if we're talking about my grandma, then there is the level 1, and 2, and
yeah.
3. Like she's able to read. So there is that access. There is that access. But I think if the question was if she didn't have everything in level 4,
No,
like
I am not
oh, okay,
implying that at all.
okay. So we're talking
Right,
about different
right,
things.
right.
Yeah.
No, but a lot of the inquiry that I made
Yeah.
then still holds true, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but again, to me, it's like access.
Yeah,
It's access.
because it's fair to say
Yeah.
that looking at the Quran flow on a more general scale, not
Yeah.
just what your contribution to it
Yeah.
is that the big picture that you would have for any student coming in, regardless of what level that they get placed in, is for them to walk away with a greater access to the Book of Allah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So having said that, let's get into what you present. Right? So, and for anybody that's not familiar, right? So the fundamental program, level 1, goes into teaching you the basics of it's an introduction to the Arabic language, specifically in the context of learning the alphabet, because that's kind of hard, recognizing these letters, the kinds of sounds that they perhaps make, and what they look like in its different positions. And then level 2 kind of goes into assembling those letters so that you can read them, but also pronouncing those letters. This is what traditionally may be known as makharij and some. And then we got level 3, which goes into the basic rules of tajweed, so you can start reciting. Level 4
And fluency. I think.
and fluency, but level 4 really hits the fluency
Yeah.
part, where
No, I think level 3 is more. So fluency is more like the skill of being able to do the level 1 and 2 stuff in practice,
yes,
right?
yeah.
So if you learned how to identify certain like letters and pronounce letter sounds and connect sounds together, but now when you try to do it in the mushaf,
Yeah.
like it's a little bit slow and choppy. So that's like practice with doing that.
Yeah.
And then my level introduces tajweed rules. So maybe that's where we had a little.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
and maybe this is where we were kind of having a gap,
Yeah.
where like you're saying that your level is introducing tajweed rules, and in my mind, All of this is
Yes.
tajweed.
Yeah, yeah.
Makharij is
Of
tajweed.
course, yeah. You're correct.
Is tajweed.
Yeah.
And so so is ghunna and qalqala and ghussa taghut and khid.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Me, within the context, and is it fair to say that those people who teach the recitation of the Quran traditionally do not include bata and the makharij as tajweed?
No, makhanij is part of Tajweed.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but they don't
But
consider the introduction to letters and the sounds that they well that
no,
is
because that's it's kind of like a given that you already can read,
okay.
and so it's not like
So in a traditional sense, tajweed is for those people who already know how to read but don't know how to recite.
yes, if you're using those terms, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and I guess
Or they know how to recite,
yeah.
right? You can say they know how to recite, but they don't know all the formal rules of Tajweed, to put it that way.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So now we're talking about getting into the in this is the realization with relation to martial arts, right? Coming from like a mixed martial arts background to something more technical like jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
like in mixed martial arts, like doesn't matter what direction you hit a submission with relation to getting your arm like this. It's a chicken wing, right? It's a
Okay.
chicken wing here, it's a chicken wing there. But in jiu-jitsu, the the technical term is representative of the position from which you hit the chicken wing, right? And so you could be a kimura, it could be what
I know a different type of chicken wing. You eat the chicken wing. That's a
well,
garpar, and you got a hot sauce.
so but like that's the technical now if you're going to become a certified teacher in a particular system, it is now expected that you know the technical terms,
Yeah.
maybe even the Japanese terms,
Yeah.
for what these moves are, and they're all indicated. It's like even I guess in the medical field, and you probably know this better than I do, but if you have a doctor that explains to, or a nurse that explains, or a resident that explains to a doctor, yeah, so and so has a tummy ache. It's like, yo, what's the medical term?
Yeah.
What does he actually have?
Mhm.
Right now, the patient might appreciate, hey, they're letting them know I got a tummy ache, but they might have like a gastral in section something blockage
Okay. Yeah.
or something, right? And I guess that's important in the sense of like, as a practitioner in a certified sense, they need to know their stuff on a technical level.
Mhm.
But with Quran flow, we're not trying to, at least from at this stage,
Mhm.
we're not trying to produce uh, uh, technically certified ijazat holding,
Mhm.
like that's great. There's people that do that, but we want people that can play the game, right?
Yep.
And so I guess, but now going back into like your level, and I hope it took us a little while to
Yeah.
clarify to get on the same page of like what is tajweed and what's the benefits of that. Um, in your in the levels that you teach, what do you cover, and how do you go about covering it? And to put it into context for folks, when you enroll and you take an assessment, you're placed in a particular level. Now, nobody's going to get placed in level 4. The people that are coming into level 4 likely are already in the program. They graduated from like level 1, 2, and then 2 to 3. And those who are coming into level 4, they've probably, maybe they started at level 2, got to 3, and now coming to 4, or they started at 1, got to 2, got to 3, and now they're level 4. So they're already well within and have become familiarized with the process and the system. And so when they come into your level, that's not gonna be their first experience with the Quran Flow program. So but for those who are maybe not familiar, could you share with them what it is that you cover in terms of the levels that you address, and how you cover it. Now, when you are when you are in level, it's 16 weeks, right? So every week a lesson is going to be dropped, and it's expected that hey, you consume whatever the video lesson is. Encouraged to attend the live session, the reading circle, the office hours, and ultimately submit your sabak, and the teacher's gonna get back to you. But like that's the I guess the methodology that we approach it as,
Yeah.
in terms of the structure. But like, what is it that you cover, and what has been your approach to that material?
Yeah. So, I'm covering. I'm gonna say Tajweed rules, but we already had this discussion. I'm covering. So once somebody can read the Quran, right? then there are particular, like once someone can read the Arabic text of the Quran, then there are specific sounds or specific ways of reading that are just part of how the Quran is transmitted to us. Okay, so for example, if you're reading in the Arabic, you might read faman, one word, ya'mal, a second word, right? For example, in Surah Zalzala, إذا زلزلت الأرض, right? So فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يرى, for example. Yeah. فمن يعمل مثقال. Now, when you're listening to a recitation, the reciter is going to recite فمن يعمل, right? So first one, فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره. Why not خيرا يره? Right? That's what the text seems to indicate. But these are particular rules. Like in when you have this situation, when you have this sound followed by this other sound, we're gonna do this certain thing to the sound of the, in this case, the sound of the noon, right? So فمن يعمل becomes فمن يعمل, right? So it's this sound, it's this thing that happens that we would call a rule, like it's a situational thing. If this happens, then you do this. Now this other one, خيرا يرى, becomes خيرا يرى. And you hopefully you can hear the same thing happening. So فمن يعمل became فمن يعمل, where the sound of the noon got sort of merged into the ya, and you get that may, فمن يعمل sound. Now the same thing's going to happen in this other case. خيرا, which ends in a noon sound, yara, followed by a ya. We're going to merge the sound, خيرا yara, right? That's some of the stuff I teach. We teach also elongations, right, which are known as mudud, or in recitation. In some places, you'll hear a reciter reciting. We don't say أولئك الذين. We're going to say أولئك الذين, right? So these are some of the things I cover in this level, as well as application, right? So again, there's a like we learn these rules, and then we go to the mushaf to actually see this live as you're reading, right? So be able to look at the mushaf. Again, this is like really based around the idea that, at least the way I'm approaching it with this idea that sometimes students are a little bit overwhelmed or maybe intimidated by all these rules, okay? And this idea that maybe I'm reading it wrong. Like, for me, the idea of focusing on beauty is something that really appeals to me, and I think hopefully appeals to others as well. Because sometimes people come to the Quran with this idea that, like, oh my God, I'm going to read it wrong, and that almost becomes a barrier to them accessing the Quran too, right? To me, it's like very much as, you hear me say the word access a lot, right? Because if somebody has that idea that, like, I'm reading it wrong, or I could be reading it wrong, therefore I shouldn't read it, right? So it creates a barrier and a distance from
the fear of making the mistake prevents you from attempting.
Yes.
Or the fear of failure.
I mean, it's a bunch of things, right? There's sometimes, like, there's socially this idea, like if I read, it's embarrassing in front of others.
Yeah.
But even putting that aside, a person might have this, like, oh, there's these rules, right? When you say rules, it means that you could be doing it wrong. If you don't follow the rules,
break them.
If I break the rules, then there's consequences, right?
Yeah.
So that's why the way I approach it, and I try to explain this, that rules really just means like scenarios. If this, then this, right? If it's a school zone, then, naturally we're going to slow down to protect the kids. Everything. Of course, there's probably consequences. You get slapped with a fine. But I try to approach it from the idea of beauty and encouraging students to use their voice and try making these sounds, right? A lot of these things, that's why I group them in this, when I get that idea of beauty, right? Because you're not, like, gonna break something. You're not going to change the meaning or something with a lot of these, with these rules. So I try to approach it in that kind of a way with students, where I explain the concept. I let students use their voice to feel their way through, and we go into the mushaf and, like, actually see where do these things occur, so that a student can build that, I'm going to say access, but that familiarity, right? That I give the analogy of, like, you're driving, and if you're driving slowly on a city street, the signs are going to come at you slowly, right? But then you want to graduate to driving on the highway or freeway or expressway, whatever it's called, wherever you are,
Or weaving in and out of traffic.
or weaving in and out. Like now the signs are going to start to come faster, and you don't want that to overwhelm you. So same thing when you're reading, you learn this concept. Let's look at the mushaf and see, okay, this situation happens here, it's happening here, it's happening here. So you already know how to read it. Let's work on it in these places. And it builds up that confidence and ability, like to say, hey, you know what? I've seen this before. And the sounds are not that hard to make. So I can make these sounds. And now we're just combining these different rules together. So I think that's my approach. My approach is very much like, let's be easy about it. Let's enjoy it. Let's try to approach it through the idea of beautifying the recitation rather than coming at it with this, like starting with a negative mindset, right? It's like, imagine like driving. We said the same thing. Imagine you get behind the wheel and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to crash. Like you're going to have this tension. You're going to hold the steering wheel with like extra like firmness.
Yeah.
And sometimes
It's the age-old idea of don't think of a pink elephant, right?
yeah.
What's gonna happen exactly? Right? Is it even same thing like in mountain biking? Many times like the trails that you're on, they're gravel dirt trails, but they're raised, right? And on either side of these trails, there's these ditches.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to avoid going into the ditch, you're going into the ditch, right? As opposed to continuing straight and keeping your eyes on the horizon.
You're drawing a line, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of akin to that analogy, right?
I suppose.
It's
Yeah. Focusing, like, don't be focused on
the mistakes,
and oh my God, I'm going to do this wrong,
Yeah.
and something bad is going to happen. Really, just getting, my approach in the lessons that I've recorded already are really just to emphasize beauty and emphasize trying things out.
Okay.
Right?
What now? Is it fair to say that the action that they'll be able to demonstrate is a sense of beauty in their recitation?
Beauty can mean different things to different people. But yes.
Yeah, but like,
if I had to answer one word, I'd say yes.
okay, great. So now, in order for them to be able to do that, especially at the level that you're teaching,
Yeah.
right? You're teaching at a more advanced level. People have been in the program, and even if they get to the final class, they've been in the program for at least a couple of years now, right? And so, what would you, Idris Ali, as an instructor, have as a requirement personally for your students, for them to be able to continue to achieve and grow with that, with that idea that, hey, if you want to be able to attain beauty in your recitation, this is what I would expect from you.
Going forward after they've done.
Yeah, like they're at level 4, right? They've been in the program at least a year now, probably. Regardless of whether if they started at level 1, they've been in the program well over a year.
Yeah.
Right. They start at level 2, they're entering upon the full year in the program. And if they're attending your final class in the advanced setup, then they're definitely been in the program for at least 2 years, right? So in either of these cases, and maybe it's a different expectation in either level, and perhaps you can articulate what is the expectation that you have, what is that you require of the student at each of these levels.
So in my level specifically, I would really expect that students, first of all, embrace this idea that I'm trying to say about like not being overwhelmed, and like, see, you have to kind of remember the skating analogy. The person, even if they fell the first time, they still have a choice whether they want to get back on the second time, right? So if somebody chooses at that point, let me put the skates away, then they're going to be done. But if that person chooses to get back on the ice and then also learn some techniques for balance and that kind of thing, then they'll get to a point in a few tries where they can now like feel the beauty, or in this case, the enjoyment of the activity. So my expectation for students at this level is that there's a conscious choice, first of all, that I'm not going to allow myself to be overwhelmed, or I'm not going to allow myself to like keep a distance from those stuff, that I'm going to engage with it, that I'm learning something. Okay, I didn't just watch a video. I'm going to use my voice and try this out myself, right? and try to enjoy the process. Like, so what if it doesn't sound exactly the way you, like I'm doing it, or the way your favorite reciter is doing it. So I think there's that expectation in the learning process that students are engaging, and they make that conscious commitment and recommitment to do, like, listen to watch the lesson, and also do the practice and engage with it in the mushaf, right? So sometimes, for example, at the end of a lesson, I'll say, okay, we covered this. Now go to your mushaf, open any page, and look for like 5 examples of this rule that we just covered.
Sure.
So I
How
would,
much time do you feel to do that kind of activity would it take?
it can vary from person to person. Yeah. It can vary from person to person. I'd say the lessons, I don't know if I always stuck to my script. I kind of go for it a little bit. So my lessons are probably
Well, outside of however long the lesson is, or
outside of
sure.
however long the lesson is. Some people, so people learn in different ways. Some people need like frequency, repeated exposure to something. Some people are good with, let me block off half an hour or an hour and actually like do this thing. What I've noticed with students sometimes is that they confuse one for the other. So a student who might be able to get by with, so suppose we cover this concept like man ya'mal instead of man ya'mal. It took me 1 second to say man ya'mal. If a student, I mean, of course, I've been doing this for quite a long time, but if someone didn't know, like this was a new thing they learned, right? A person could repeat ma ya'mal while they're driving, while they're cooking, while they're like, you know what I mean? It's something they can practice and get a lot, like frequency. They can do it 100 times, in a day, 20 times after each salah. That's 100 times in one day multiplied by 7. So a person could reasonably repeat that thing that they learned over 7 days, 700 times if they did 20 times. That's something actually my Tajweed teacher a long, long time ago, he gave us, he put that in my head. We would do a certain sound and he would say, okay, you're going to do that 1,000 times before next, I don't remember the exact number, but he would say something like that. And we're like, what do you mean 1,000 times? And he's like, okay, well, you do it 20 times after each salah and 20 times before each salah. And he's doing the math for us. And it's simple things like letter pronunciations and stuff. So, but the point is that a student sometimes might feel like, hey, wait a sec, I need to mark off in my calendar and block off an hour so that I can work through this material. Nobody's going to find an hour. Like between work and if you have kids and this and that.
So
You
I mean,
might,
I guess it comes down to, like you mentioned, is depending on the type of individual.
and the type of exercise.
Sure, and the type of exercise. So like, and the environment, because there's a thought of like recency and frequency and intensity,
Yeah.
right? So like, how often are you engaging with the material over the course of a week
Yeah.
before you make your submission? How, not even how much time are you spending in that session,
Yeah.
but how focused is that session?
Yeah.
Whether it's 15 minutes, whether it's an hour, right? But how focused is that? And to me, um, it's like the idea of doing exercise,
Mhm.
right? Like if I do exercise at home, guaranteed it's not going to be as focused as if I were to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Because at home, I got my kid, he wants to work out with me too, right? In the middle of the workout, my wife is going to call me to do something.
Yeah.
I might get distracted by something on the phone. But if I'm at the gym, my phone's in my bag, right? If it's out, it's looking up whatever the circuit is that I have to do, and then I'm in the circuit,
Yeah.
right? And so there's that. I guess it's a question of now, like, do you schedule the time like an appointment, or do you hope to find time maybe somehow?
So I think everyone's different. Everyone's different in terms of how they handle their own schedule and in terms of how they learn best as well. Hopefully, if somebody is in level 4, they already have some sort of a rhythm from the previous lesson, like the previous levels, and they know. Uh, that's why sometimes people have these videos on how to do hifz, for example, how to memorize. People have different ways of memorizing. Like it could be entirely based on their lifestyle. It could be on their schedule. It could be, some people need a lot of touch points and some people need like one big chunk of sitting down. So people are different. I would think that for some of the concepts, like for example, if between saying ulaika and ulaika, how much time did that take?
In terms of like saying it,
Yeah,
or I mean, that's what, 5 seconds at most?
less, like
Yeah,
almost like 1 second, right?
because you got a 2 count versus a 4 count.
Like it's like I mean to say like it takes zero time to understand that concept. Like, so if you watch that video lesson and now you understand that, okay, instead of saying ulaika, we're going to say ulaika, it doesn't actually take any time to learn that specifically. What will take time is you going to for that specific lesson, is going to the mushaf and being able to see when
Taking
that
a
happens,
pencil and
to,
circling
yeah,
where
to
the
circle it,
nugud are,
so that when you're reading,
or the stretches.
yeah, so that when you're reading, you recognize it before you get to that, before you arrive at that point and you're like, oh my God, what do I do here? So that's the idea. So something like that, it doesn't take long to learn. It takes time to maybe sit with the mushaf and circle these things. But that itself doesn't need to take very, very long. It takes time to maybe once go over and circle a few of these things and then read that page with those now in mind. So now whenever you see ulaika, you're going to read it ulaika. You see ya ayyuha, you're going to read ya ayyuha. You see anything ja'akum, you're going to say ja'akum. So it's like, it'll take time, and that won't only be in 1 week, because now this thing's accumulative, right? So if you practice that in this week, then next week you're going to be stacking this with something else you learn, but you need to engage with the mushaf, right? Everyone's schedule varies, but I think for that sort of exercise, a person should have at least 10-15 minutes where they can sit down with the mushaf and like go through something and read it, and that has to be repeated over time.
Okay. Now, what about by the time they get to the final portion, right, in tone, right? Like, what kind of expectation do you have for somebody at that level? And this is somebody who's been in the program with Quran Flow for a full 2 years, and they've not only
But I think that the structure's changing, right?
uh, so there the elements within, yes, I wouldn't say the structure is changing within the over the since the program has started, right? There's the curriculum has continued to evolve and grow,
Yeah.
and based on the needs of the student and what they respond to better. And so but fundamentally, well, the fundamentals program is what it is now.
Yeah.
And the advanced program will have these components of memorization, the rules of stopping, aka waqf, and tone, right? Now, you've already produced the tone portion, it's already there. But again, it's like the final and advanced setup, perhaps. Now, could it change that maybe that's positioned at an earlier portion? Maybe, maybe not. But you as an instructor, what would, regardless of when they receive it in the advanced level, what is your expectation for them at that level?
So I would go back to an earlier question you said, like, because I talk a lot about the expectation in terms of a student, like what they should do, what they should put in.
Yeah.
And maybe just one thing I'll add about that is that people also have to, everyone, myself too, like, have to have a little, like, some self-awareness, right? Self-awareness means that, like, if I have to put more of an effort for something compared to someone else, I have to put that effort, right? If I have to work harder for something, like, compared to whatever, my brother or my friend or whatever, like, everyone's situation is different. And I think sometimes when students look for, okay, how much time do I need to do exactly? Well, maybe this week you need to put more time than the other student, but next week that student needs to put more time than you.
Well, in
So,
this case, you're talking about comparison being a thief of joy,
yes.
right? And
Yeah.
so, like, don't necessarily compare
And a thief
yourself.
of learning in this case,
Sure,
thief of,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
thief of
sure. Like,
progress.
it'll demotivate you, kill your morale in your growth and development.
At the end of the level, I would want students, ideally, I mean, everyone, I have experience with teaching students. Not everyone gets to the end of a program. Not everyone, does everything they need to do. But ideally, if somebody was to complete, the practice and the work for that level, they should be able to read through a surah, right? And incorporate these rules as they're going. Maybe not necessarily in the first attempt, right? Maybe not necessarily in the first attempt, but they should be able to, they have the tools such that if they're reading a surah, and we actually do some reading practice in the lessons that I've recorded, such that you can look through the surah maybe once and find these, okay, this rule here, this rule there, this rule there, and then begin to read and incorporate those rules. That's my expectation for a student at the end of that. Now, being able to do that uh, confidently and quickly now, remember, you're going from city driving now to the expressway, the freeway. That will take you driving on the freeway. If you've never driven on the freeway. So now when you start to say, okay, I've done this with like Alam Tara Kaifa. I've done this with Qul Huwallahu Ahad. I've done this with Surah Fatiha. Now I want to recite, like I'm going to start from Baqarah. I'm going to read Baqarah. I'm going to read Ali Imran. I'm going to read Surah,
So
Nisa and so on.
could you articulate, and I like the direction that you're going in here, but could you further, like, could you clarify maybe in maybe simpler terms, what would be the benchmark by which they could measure their progress in this regard? Like, is it simply being able to read more?
At the end of the level?
Yeah.
At the end of level 4?
Yeah, what you're describing, yeah.
Yeah. So a student should be able to look at, for example, a short surah. Like, I'm assuming most students in the program are not like quite tackling Surah An-Nisa, for example. Maybe they are. Maybe they are.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I would assume
okay.
somebody, by the time they get to level 4, might actually find reading Surah An-Nisa and Baqarah and Ali Imran easier
Yes.
than reciting the shorter surahs.
Okay. Well, either way, whether it's Surah Al-Fil, I chose Surah Al-Fil because visually it's short.
Yeah.
Visually it looks like something a person can hold in
Sure,
their
yeah,
hand,
yeah, yeah.
right? Where
All of what you're teaching in level 4 can be encapsulated in both Surah Al-Fil and Surah Al-Quraysh.
yes, so it applies equally to like Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah An-Nisa.
Yeah.
Except that if Surah Al-Fil, you can hold it like
And that's
like
why
this.
it's
Now
probably
Surah Al-Baqarah, you got to hold it like this because the number of
yeah.
pages. So that's why I didn't. But technically, a person should be able to look at that and not feel. Remember, I talked about overwhelm and access. Like a person should be able to look at that and, oh, okay, that over there, that sign over there is this. Oh, there's that stop sign, but that doesn't bug me because I know what it is, right? Again, imagine you're driving and maybe you go to a different city, right? I'm in a different city now. Like something that happens when you drive in a different city is that the same thing that you would have recognized back home, or the same thing that you would not have noticed back home, you would notice in a different place. So if you're, meaning, even if you know how to drive and you're a good driver, when you go somewhere else and now the color of the sign changed or the shape of the sign changed, it'll like throw you off. Like you have to do a double take to know what you're doing because the way the lanes might be set up.
Especially when you jump into Montreal and suddenly all the stop signs have become arrête.
Arrêt, arrêt.
Arrête.
You don't say the T.
Yeah, the T is silent. Okay.
The T is out.
Okay.
So yeah, it's the same red stop sign, but
Yeah.
now it says it's in French,
Yeah.
right? So anyways, the point is that when someone finishes this level, they should be able to open, again, Surah Al-Fil or Surah Al-Baqarah. And when they look at the page, it doesn't cause them that same overwhelm that like, there's all this stuff going on. And I don't know what that sign is,
Yeah.
Like there's more of a sense of calm that, hey, you know what? I can read this and I know what these things are.
Like your catchphrase, you got this.
You got this. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, one of the things I wanted to kind of, I mean, normally I would want to ask where this information comes from and why these sources, but like, and perhaps you can kind of give a little bit of insight into where, like, I know you shared earlier your background and your study, but this idea of like this what we know as Tajweed, specifically with level 4. Um, where did this information come from?
So there's a few texts that remember that one that I mentioned, the
poem from al-Jazari, right?
Yeah. So there's the poem of Ibn al-Jazari, right, which is referred to as Jazariya, right? In this case, this is called Muqaddimatul Jazariya, the introduction of Jazariya, which has these rules in like versified form. Okay, and there's another one that's commonly studied. It's called Tuhfatul Atfal, which means like a gift for children. Not really a gift, yeah. Like a gift, something like that, like a gift for children, right? And it's really just a little primer. It's not very long, and it's in poetic form, and it contains all these rules. So these rules codified in these texts and other texts, and they go over the different situational if this then that, different things related to pronunciation of certain letters and so on.
Now, somebody's coming into level 4, right? How do they know that the way that you're sharing and that you're presenting is because they may have had experience with a different instructor before.
Okay.
And now this is probably their first interaction with you, right? And so the question now is, how do they know that what you're sharing and how you're sharing it is actually going to work for them?
How do they know before they've seen what I have to say?
Yeah, no, because I mean, I guess it's an element of building a sense of confidence. I would think
Mhm.
what you're presenting is still within the same recognizable system that they're already familiar with, right? So
Okay, so maybe you're asking, just to clarify.
yeah,
So if someone like myself has studied Tajweed a certain way from these texts,
yeah,
right? Let's call that the traditional way
sure,
with traditional terminology.
yes,
In this program, we are teaching it, but not with we are teaching the same concepts and the same sounds, but not necessarily with you memorizing an Arabic poem
yeah,
or memorizing certain Arabic terms that describe the same thing.
okay.
So, uh, wait, what was the question again?
So
I,
the question is, it's like, because I guess it's twofold, right?
yeah,
On one element is that somebody who's coming into level 4 from say level 3, right? Like it's a different instructor, right? And so and this material that's presented maybe has a different vibe. How do they know that what you're presenting and how you're presenting it is going to work for them, right? That's element number one. And maybe you could the answer to that can be found in your own experience as a teacher going into the other students that you have taught up until this point. Is like, how have you seen them grow, and how do you know what you teach actually works?
yeah. So there's two things. One is like trust in the material and the teacher itself, and that comes from like the ijaza system,
Yeah.
right? I mean, part sometimes like, like okay, so that comes from the ijaza system is like I learned this from a teacher, and we have that certificate. Who learned from a teacher? Who learned from a teacher, and so on. Uh, so there's that there should be like that baseline level of trust that okay, that that's the material being taught. In
It's
terms of
fair to say that now, for anybody who is not familiar with ijazat, is basically, in one way, one can describe it as it being a certification of sort. But at the same time, there's a lineage here
yeah,
to what you've learned that goes back to the Prophet ﷺ,
sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
right? And it's not just a lineage in the sense of that somebody has said and validated Idris knows how to recite, but Idris is also capable of teaching this material,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And they are both two different types
yes, yes,
of certifications, right?
yeah,
And so um, now it's a question of like, how does that translate to the student who's coming into level 4?
yeah. So how, like I think what you're asking is how do we know? How would someone know? Or how would someone have confidence that the teaching method works?
Sure. One is, how does the teaching method work? How does
Because it's
your
yeah,
approach to teaching actually deliver results to the students? And that you can only you can speak to that as a teacher who has taught Tajweed before.
yes, yes. I've been teaching students for a long time, and you get experience from that, right? Like I'm not just like there's little like tricks that you learn from experience of teaching, right? Try this. This will make it easier. Or analogies sometimes, right? But again, a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching, like for example, we're teaching a certain sound. Uh, for example, we wouldn't say minkum, we say minkum. Okay, uh, to be able to like pull an English analogy and say, okay, this is similar to if you're saying thinking, right, or English. It's that type of N sound. That's same thing here when we say minkum. So things like that, like some I like they help students, right? If a student was getting confused by what they should be doing with that sound,
I just thought King
right?
of England.
Right? King of England, right? So those sorts of like little tips and stuff like sometimes put a student at ease and help them to learn something as opposed to if they have a concept and you tell them, okay, we're gonna do ikhfa, right? And they're like, I don't know what that means. What am I supposed to do on this sound? Well, actually, it's just we're doing the same thing we're doing here, essentially. And now it puts a student at ease often.
You hit upon a lot of things, but and I want you to put it in your own words as to like, look, ultimately everything is just coming down to what I'm sharing here
Mhm.
as an instructor is to leave you with a sense of confidence which you then employ to practice the Quran that would ultimately give you greater access to the Book of Allah,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that's how I would summarize what you.
I think at this level especially, because there is also like a separate, say, you can say, scholarly track, right? Just like anything, you can study it in like a more practical way, and then just like a scholarly. So there is a more scholarly track of learning tajweed, right? But I think what I like, my intent for this program is really around access, confidence, like losing feelings of overwhelm or like I can't do this. Uh, and ultimately, and this is something that, you know, I shared in my final recording, that when we did a little reading together, ultimately, right, when we're reciting the Quran, we're reciting Surah Fatiha all the time. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. We're making this dua that, oh Allah, you know, guide us to the straight path. And then when we turn the page, and this is how I do I give away the ending?
No, I mean, yeah, sure. Well, what's the ending? I think it's kind of obvious.
The ending is that
That is the book in which there's no doubt and guidance
yeah, yeah.
from that taqwa.
I left off the final session, which where we read Fatiha together,
Yeah.
and then it's left that the end is actually the beginning, right? It's the beginning of your new journey with the Quran, or a continued journey. Like, it's not like I learned Tajweed and now I'm done, but now we were able to read Fatiha, applying all these rules, and you turn the page and you have Baqarah ahead of you. And maybe it seemed daunting before, like I can't touch Baqarah, but now you can touch Surah Al-Baqarah, and you start and you read ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, that that's the book in which there's no doubt. It's guidance for mankind, right? It's the guidance not for mankind. It's guidance for people who have taqwa, for who are coming to Allah with this kind of reverence and mindfulness, right? So that really is what it is. It's being able to not just read Fatiha and know Fatiha, but also to be able to turn to Baqarah and be like, okay, you know what? This, the guidance that I'm asking for, it's right here. And now I have this tool that I can
Just keep
continue to read.
reading.
Sorry?
Just keep reading.
Just keep reading.
Yeah.
Keep reading, keep exploring. Try to, not try to, make it a must upon yourself that you're also going to read the translation. You're going to see what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about, the stories of Bani Israel, the story of Adam, the story of, you know, this, and going into why, you know, begin your journey. Let your reading, let this tajweed not just be like, hey, I can pronounce things really well. I can pronounce this other language very well. Rather, it's really just about you having access to the Quran, you starting this journey that I'm going to read Baqarah, and I'm also going to see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants of me, and I'm going to make changes in my life. And that's going back to your question. That's the betterment for yourself. That's the betterment for your family. That's the betterment. Like when you get to a point where, you know, something is happening in your life. Let's put it this way, like you have an argument with your wife, or with your, you know, wife with her husband, or you have, you know, your child does something that really like grinds your gear. Like, these are daily, you're smiling, right? These are daily types of, like, this is lived reality, right? When you get to a point that, okay, I've read through Baqarah, and okay, maybe I didn't understand it, but I also read the translation, and something in that moment that someone says something to you and you remember something from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it is. So again, access, comfort, and being able to engage fully and enjoy the experience of reciting and engaging with the Book of Allah. I really do. I wish that for everyone.